Hello and welcome to Late Night Elections. And today I wanted to take a quick break from the presidential race and other candidate focused elections to talk about some important direct ballot initiatives that are going to be happening in the 2020 election. And there are going to be 5 different states voting on a marijuana related ballot initiative. So, this is where, if you're not familiar with what these are, instead of voting for a particular candidate, you'll see a direct issue on the ballot. So in this case, it's over either recreational or medicinal marijuana. And it's going to be a little bit different in each state. Each state will have their own version of the proposition they're going to be voting on, but it's all about marijuana. And so right here on this map, I have that Arizona, Montana, South Dakota, and New Jersey will all have recreational marijuana on the ballot. And then Mississippi as well will have medicinal marijuana, but not recreational marijuana. So if we want to look into these a little bit more of a deeper look here, we can see that there's going to be 7 different ballot initiatives happening this election cycle. And so there's the one in Arizona, one in Mississippi, which is a little bit complicated, and I'll get into that in a second. Then 2 different ones in Montana, and there's kind of a weird reason for that. The one in New Jersey, and then 2 in South Dakota. And these 2 are because they're actually voting both on recreational and medicinal. So it's possible that the medical marijuana could pass, but the recreational couldn't. Technically, the other way could happen, but that's probably not going to happen. And if that did happen, it wouldn't really matter, since if you can smoke it recreationally or have it recreationally, you can use it for your own medical purposes anyways. So a little bit deeper dive into each one. So we can start with Arizona with Proposition 207, their marijuana legalization initiative. And so this one's pretty straightforward. Out of all the states, a yes vote supports the ballot initiative to legalize the possession and use of marijuana for persons who are at least 21 years old, enact a tax on marijuana sales, and require the State Department of Health and Human Services to develop rules to regulate marijuana businesses. A no vote opposes this ballot initiative, thus keeping the recreational possession and use of marijuana illegal under state law in Arizona. So this is what a pretty standard recreational marijuana ballot initiative is going to look like. This is about as standard as they get. There's obviously a lot of room for interpretation that different state agencies would have to figure out the minute details. But if this does pass, recreational marijuana would be legal in Arizona. Now we move on to Mississippi, and this one's a little bit different. A quick reminder that this is the one that's only medical marijuana, so recreational is not on the ballot at all this election cycle in Mississippi. But so they actually have a little bit weird of a way of going about this. So there's Initiative 65 and Alternative 65A, and that's 2 versions of the same medical marijuana amendment. But then before even getting into those, you decide, do you want either of these at all, or do you want neither of these? So they're both going to legalize medical marijuana, just the Alternative 65A is more restrictive than just the baseline Initiative 65. So first of all, you either say if you want either of them or if you don't want either of them. So if you go to, if you say you want either, you go on to the second question and you say, I prefer Initiative 65, or you say, I prefer Alternative 65A. And even if you say you don't want either of them, you then get to choose your preference in case it does pass, and then your vote can still get counted into it that way. But let's look into what the differences between each of these are now. So Initiative 65, just kind of the normal base one, supports approving the medical marijuana amendment as provided by Initiative 65, and that would allow medical marijuana treatment for more than 20 specified qualifying conditions, allow individuals to possess up to 2.5 ounces at a time, and tax it at the current state sales rate of 7%. And 65A, the alternative one, there's a lot of things that aren't clear on this, and they would need to be specified. Here's a pretty nifty little chart outlining the differences here, and you can see that while Initiative 65 has a lot of the details worked out, there's hardly anything worked out for Alternative 65A. But the primary difference, and the reason someone would choose this one, is because this one is restricted to terminally ill patients only, whereas the regular Initiative 65 does not have that restriction, and so it could be applied in more broader medical cases. So that's what's on the ballot in Mississippi. A little bit more weird, a little bit more complex, and once again, recreational is not on the ballot there. Moving on to the next state in Montana, and they also have a little bit weird of a situation. So they have recreational on the ballot, but they're actually going to be voting on both this Montana I-190, which is an initiated state statute, and then also CI-118, which is an initiated constitutional amendment. And the reason for this on the constitutional amendment, it's sort of just revising the state constitution, because the way it's currently worded is that you can see here a yes vote would support amending the Montana Constitution to allow for the legislature or a citizen initiative to establish a minimum legal age for the possession, use, and purchase of marijuana, similar to the regulation of alcohol in the state constitution. So right now it's explicit in the state constitution that the legislature in the state of Montana can set a separate age for alcohol consumption than the regular legal age of becoming an adult, which is 18. So they can have alcohol be 21 even though you're an adult at 18. And so this would basically just allow them to do the same thing with marijuana, because they want to set marijuana to 21 recreationally. So without this, there might be a legal challenge in doing so. And then this Montana I-190, which is the actual marijuana legalization initiative, this would support legalizing the possession and use of marijuana for adults over the age of 21, a 20% tax on marijuana sales, and then the Department of Revenue would develop rules around the regulation of that. So the actual Montana I-190 is a pretty standard recreational marijuana initiative. There's just a little bit of a legal hurdle through the initiative constitutional amendment in CI 118. Moving on to the next state, we have New Jersey with Public Question 1. And again, this is a pretty straightforward one. It's another recreational marijuana initiative, and a yes vote would support the constitutional amendment. It would legalize the possession and use of marijuana for persons aged 21 and older, and legalize cultivation, processing, and sale of retail marijuana. So again, this one's pretty straightforward. There's a good chance it'll pass, since New Jersey is a pretty solid blue state, and recreational marijuana is generally favored by Democrats. Then finally, we have South Dakota, and this one's also a little bit different because they're actually voting both on recreational marijuana and medical marijuana at the same time. So this one, South Dakota Constitutional Amendment A, this one is for recreational, and a yes vote would support the constitutional amendment to legalize recreational use of marijuana, and it would require the South Dakota State Legislature to pass laws providing for the use of medical marijuana and the sale of hemp by April 1st of 2022. So if recreational passes, medical just kind of passes, because it doesn't make sense to have recreational and not medical. That doesn't really work. So medical would just come along with that, but this would allow for recreational. Meanwhile, South Dakota initiated Measure 26. This is only for medical and not recreational. So a yes vote would support establishing medical marijuana program in South Dakota for individuals with a debilitating medical condition. And you might be thinking, well, what does that actually mean? And we can see here in the qualifying conditions, a debilitating medical condition means, quote, a chronic or debilitating disease or medical condition or its treatment that produces one or more of the following. And then it's cachexia or wasting syndrome, severe debilitating pain, severe nausea, seizures, severe and persistent muscle spasms, including those characteristic of multiple sclerosis. Under the measure, the Department of Health could add additional qualifying conditions. So it is only medical, it is fairly restrictive with the debilitating medical condition, but that would get some degree of medical marijuana legalized. But again, it's also possible that recreational passes, and in South Dakota, marijuana becomes legal to use recreationally. So these are the 5 states that have marijuana on the ballot directly in 2020. Let me know in the comments below if you live in one of these states, what you've been hearing. Do you think it's going to pass? Do you think it's going to be fail? Do you support these measures? Do you oppose them, and why? So let me know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to give it a like if you enjoyed and were informed by it. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time for more election